Investec Champions Cup. Round 4. It's do or die. But for Scott Robertson, it's die. He's not in the Investec Champions Cup, Zels. He was an All Black coach, and apparently not a particularly good one because he's a history maker. The first ever All Blacks coach, I think in the professional era, to be fired mid-term.
I did not see that coming when they appointed him, mate. Probably didn't see it coming back in the day when he was doing 360 turns on the grass there for the Crusaders after winning a few finals. He said he's out of the Investec Champions Cup, mate. Well, he's not in it. But he will be at the bank soon, mate. Cashing his big exit check, I assume. So I think financially he's going to be fine. I think, emotionally probably a bit dinged. But such is life. Such is pro sport, mate. You can't get away with only winning 74% of your test matches.
Yeah, 20 wins from 27. Who sunk him? The Boks, England, or Argentina?
Mate, Scott Hansen.
I think he sunk himself.
Yeah.
And he's South Island bias.
He's biased, mate.
This was not the Crusaders. This was the All Blacks. And I've never known an All Black senior captain to let it conveniently be known to the media. I'm giving up on the All Blacks. I'm giving up on the All Black dream unless that guy is gone. Ardie Savea, that was the talk from New Zealand. In the review, brutally honest, said to David Kirk, the chairman, Kevin Mialamu and Don Tenka, who was on the panel, said to them, it's basically us or it's him. And they said, we don't have to think about that. Bye-bye, Razor Robertson. I think it's a great, great call for New Zealand and for the All Blacks. I was a huge Razor Robertson Super Rugby fan. I was like, how could you appoint Fozzie when you had Razor? When they gave him the extension, the players fought for Fozzie. When Mark Robinson flew over to South Africa to give Fozzie the final blow because they were expected to lose at Ellis Park, Ardie Savea led the most inspired performance, 4 tries to 2. They came out and they whipped the Springboks and they got the bonus point. And they all said, we did it for Fozzie. Joe Smith then came into the mix. They looked a transformed team. They grew in stature at the Rugby World Cup. And they were in that final against us until the 81st minute. A player down, 12-11. But for a kick, they may have won it. Sam Cane, Ian Foster, Ardie Savea, and Rico Ahone would have then known there is a tournament bigger than Super Rugby Pacific. But there was no such fight for Razor Robertson. Liam McDonald went early. Holland went early in terms of his assistants. Scott Barrett was his captain. Ardie Savea chipped in when Barrett wasn't available. But the word being used in New Zealand by Kirk is we couldn't see the trajectory. The public couldn't see it as the fans. And we said it all season. First season, 10 from 14. It's his learning year. There was nothing much that changed in year 2.
Yeah, you say they fought for Fozzie, mate. I thought Fozzie wasn't very good, and it turns out he probably was actually not too bad, given the record that they had on the Razor, mate. I mean, it's surprising and disappointing. It's great for South African rugby, and I think probably the man who's happiest, mate, may be Jacques Nina, but because I've been calling for him to come back, and in a twist, mate, maybe this kind of opens the door. I'm guessing Jamie Joseph is very much on the radar to replace Razor, and Tony Brown's his right-hand man. That I think if Tony goes back, I think he's in New Zealand at the moment. If he stays there, mate, it certainly opens up a big hole in the Bok management team for somebody senior. I think Jacques was coming back anyway, but I think it opens up a Jacques-sized hole there, and I think the Boks will be greatly served by having Nina's back, as I've said a few times. For New Zealand, mate, I think they will get better, and I'm not sure how long it'll take, but I think everywhere is up from where they are right now. The disappointing thing to me, for Razor, as somebody who called for him to have the job when Fozzie got it already, was just the lack of innovation, the lack of experimentation. His biggest move was playing Geordie at 12, which didn't really get off the ground. And for the rest of it, it was pretty much ho-hum, run-of-the-mill stuff that they've been doing for the last 10 years. So I feel like, I don't know if he got stage fright or what the situation was around the way the team played and some of his selections. I know there were some factors, external factors that affected his selections. Obviously, Richie Mo'unga's a guy who wasn't available. But I expected more from his All Blacks. You know, if he was going to get fired after 2 years, to me, it would have been because they were losing games 88, 86 and playing some incredible rugby, scoring great tries, but just not having defense. To kind of be mulling about, finding ways to win, and then losing ugly when they lost. is disappointing and surprising to me.
Yeah, when I look at his tenure, and it started poorly against England in the home series, they edged 2 wins, and you kept on thinking, when's this going to improve? They came to South Africa, they had moments at Ellis Park, kept trialists in Cape Town, they lost both there, went on the end of the year tour, showed hints, they beat an Ireland side, which was then, had been their bogey team pre that quarterfinal in the 2023 World Cup. And it was okay. He's had his first year, 10 wins from 14. He had to play 2 in South Africa. That was always going to be a tough task. He maintained the Bledisloe Cup but where's the innovation? Where's the kind of shock selections? Where's the freshness post the 2023 World Cup, that exodus overseas? It didn't look like Super Rugby form was being rewarded. A guy like Ruben Love was like killing it at Super Rugby level. I think got like 2 games in 2 years, basically, under Razor. Always in the mix, but not quite there. It was the same old. He'd get wins against teams he should get wins against. Coughed up 38 points against the Pumas in Wellington. That was a record at home. The Springboks beat that also in Wellington. 43 points they coughed up. Lost to Argentina for the first time. And then I think the big one was the end of the year tour. Post that South African defeat, I think that's the one that basically put him on the chopping block, 43-10, because I have never seen an All Black team, and professionally I've been writing about them since 1992. I've never seen an All Black team basically just hoist the white flag. And you got that feeling in Wellington that last 10 minutes. Another 10 minutes we would have won 66-10. They just weren't interested. And maybe that was their message to the board. We don't want to play for this guy. And they went on tour, weren't overly convincing, and their first big test was going to be against England. They started off with some flamboyant rugger, got into a 12-0 lead, and then just basically got smashed. Got beaten up, got bullied. And then even against a Welsh side, they were 26-19 or 26-21 on the hour. They ran away with it 52-26, 52-28, but it wasn't enough, because we went and beat the Welsh 73-0 with playing without 12 of our top players a week later. What I didn't expect was New Zealand, given how apathetic they've been in terms of the administration. I didn't expect them to act so swiftly, but then for the first time ever, I don't think they've ever had a review where the players have been so strong in their condemnation and their opposition to the head coach.
But, you said they acted quickly, and by their standards they did. It's the first time they sacked a guy in mid-tenure. But by waiting as long as they did, and this being the consequence of player review, the power for the sort of axe being swung is now in the players' hands. And I don't know if that's such a great space for any team to be in. As much as you want the feedback from the players, and I think there are times where you get feedback that nobody knew about, and I think it is important to get that. When you fire a coach because the players have had enough of him, it kind of leaves you in a interesting situation going forward, because that's quite an immense show of power from the players. A new guy comes in. Is he tap dancing for the administration? Does he need to keep the players on board? How's it all sticking together? I don't know. That's just my opinion on that thing. I'm glad that they've made the change. I think it's good for New Zealand rugby. I think it's good for world rugby. We need some powerhouses back on the senior. And it'd be great for the Boks to actually be testing themselves against an All Blacks team that lives up to the standards that we know that they've set before. And it'll be exciting to watch, man. I think we're still going to carry on beating them for quite some time. But it'll be good to have them back in the mix. Well,
We will be their first biggest test, whoever's going to take over.
Indeed.
And odds-on favourite is Jamie Joseph. He played for the All Blacks. He coached the Māori All Blacks. Highlanders man with Tony Brown. They come packaged as Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Rasmus come packaged. They went to Japan, produced miracles with Japan. They were the Japanese coaches in the 2019 World Cup. Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown, who beat Ireland, pushed a lot of teams, and were competitive against the Boks in that quarterfinal for the best part of 40 minutes before we ran away with a 26-3 in the second half. They did an incredible job with Japan. Masterstroke, many said, for Rassie to bring Tony Brown in. The moment Jamie Joseph felt that Mark Robinson, the CEO, had engineered that Scott Robinson would take over, he pulled out of any application for the All Black job, and with that, Tony Brown did. We know that Scott Robinson offered Tony Brown the backs gig. He said no. He goes to Jamie Joseph for no one. He's very loyal. It's the
Awesome.
Jock Rassie thing. And then Rassie saw that gap and brought him here. 2 years, he's really done some great things with the Bok, evolving the Bok attack. And while we also found that balance in the way we play, does he stay and continue his tenure and honor that and say, I'm here till 2027, and then my mate Jamie, I'm over there, I'm yours, bro, we're in, we do the All Blacks for the next 4 years? Or does he look for a clause to out? And then the question is, and we've been laughing at the Irish and saying that Rassied them by getting Jacques Nienaber in their system, and you're bringing back just before the World Cup. Would it be fair to say, if you're a conspiracy theorist, as you are, Zels, that Rassie could be out-Rassied
I mean, it's
by Jamie Joseph?
It's possible, mate. I think the All Blacks coaches are going to be Jake White and Jacques Nienaber.
Well, Jake White has said it's been his dream to coach the All Blacks since he was at Jeppy. And his application is in.
Mate, if it's all about tradition and restoring the All Blacks to what they've always done and the sort of pillars of their rugby culture there, I mean, you could do worse than Jake.
No,
they would
never go for a foreigner, but if
No.
you're talking foreigners, Jake White would fit the mold of getting the best out of the All Blacks.
100%. But let me tell you what I do think. I do think that Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown end up as the All Blacks coaches. I would love to see a guy, and you mentioned him, Dave Rennie is a guy I think would be great in the mix there. But I think Jamie and Tony have kind of been teed up to be the Mavericks, waiting on the flight deck for Iceman to get in trouble. And I think Iceman is in trouble and he's ejected, and now Maverick needs to be scrambled off the hot deck. So I think those two guys, and Imad, I expect pictures of Top Gun in the show. Those two guys, those two guys are going to be in the mix. I think they'll turn things around relatively quickly. I think everywhere is up for this All Blacks team right now. I think the players will be excited about that. Tony has an exit clause to be able to go back to the All Blacks from the Bok job, as far as I understand it. Is that correct?
Or did you put that one in?
I wrote it in there.
I don't know. I haven't
It's
seen
a
his
vibrant.
contract. But I'll be speaking to the Pels and be later today.
As far as I understand it, if he gets offered a job by the All Blacks, there's a thing in his Bok contract that says he can get out. Maybe I've got that wrong. I thought that was in there. That if he got offered the
Where
All
did you
Blacks
get
job.
that from?
I thought that was the case, mate, but maybe I've got that wrong. Anyway, regardless,
Do you want to keep Tony Brown till 2027, or were you happy to let him go to the All Blacks?
I think he's done great things with the Boks, mate.
Do we fight for him?
But let me say this. If they appoint Jamie Joseph and Tony wants to go, as you've just said, he's a loyal man. I can't see how having him stay here would help the situation. So if they appoint a guy like Dave Rennie or somebody else and he offers a job to Tony, it's not quite the same thing. But if his main Jamie Joseph gets the job, you'd think Tony would want to go. I mean, that's where he's from. He played for the All Blacks. It makes sense to say yes.
You spoke about Dave Rennie. A lot of success with the Chiefs, with Glasgow Warriors. Went to Australia, was bulleted for Eddie Jones. It was one of the shocks because he was getting that Australian side right.
Dave Rennie, mate.
People forget that he got back-to-back wins against Jacques Nienaber's Boks in Australia. And that first test as well, it kind of bullied them. The second test, when they scored 4 tries to 2, they really got under our skins. They played typical Dave Rennie. Anyone who's followed him from his under 20 days of coaching New Zealand to the Chiefs.
Nuggety, physical rugby.
off the ball. He got like Mangul out of
Love
those,
that guy.
out of the Wallabies, and then boom, he was out, and Eddie Jones was in. And a lot of people said, "Thank goodness he's up because he's got more. A chair's got more personality than Dave Rennie." But it wasn't that he needed to speak to the media. It's what the players thought of him. They were shocked that he was so abruptly sent on his way, and he's been coaching in Japan, basically going through the motions. But he's someone that I always thought would do particularly well with the All Blacks, and he's a guy who could do well with a team like South Africa because he speaks to that kind of DNA and that kind of culture. Joe Smith, there's a love affair with him in New Zealand. Technically outstanding. Refused to work with Razor Robinson, and that just improves his rugby IQ now. When he looked at it and said, "I'm not going to work with this guy. I work with Fozzie, or I don't take the job at all." He went to Australia, got that great win against the Springboks at Ellis Park, great win against England at Twickenham, pushed France, but the losses were too big as well. In between, 39% win record. He won 11 out of 27 or 11 out of 28. But they still want him to stay on. Les Kissie's taken over from him. He may be in the mix in some other capacity. I just have a feeling by making this call now, they're very much where we were sitting post Alistair Coetzee. And if you're going to make a change, and I've always felt this, in a World Cup cycle, make it 18 months out.
Totally.
Because
nobody's got time to adjust.
no
to
one's
your
got time to
changes.
adjust to you.
Yeah.
You come in with all this enthusiasm. You got the excuse of only being here 18 months. And it's actually the next World Cup that we're targeting. And for the first time, I think New Zealand have been bold for the right reasons and haven't defaulted and said he's got to see out his contract. He's won 7 Super Rugby titles, Razor Robinson, an NPC title. He won the World Championship with the under-20s, and it will come right. They just said they saw nothing in that second year to show that there was any form of evolution in the team. And that's what we kept on saying during the international season last year. This surely can't be the All Blacks. This surely can't be the vision. Because there was no flair, there was no honesty, there was no intensity. Post-match, it was always, we one pass away from playing the perfect game. We created so much. And when they brought Jamie Joseph in, and he's been with the Highlanders, to coach the All Black 15 on tour, you knew. If this guy stumbles on the end of your tour, there's a good chance he's out. But I think the big fallout has come with Ardie Savea. Not seen eye to eye with him. And for a guy like Ardie Savea to say, New Zealand Player of the Year, one of the best players in the world. In New Zealand, they talk about mana and the way guys follow you. The All Blacks follow him. Teams follow that guy. He's the closest they've got to a Sia Khaleesi type influence. And I don't think Razor saw that. When he went with Scott Barrett as his captain, he went for like from the Crusaders. Never got his selections right, but I think it's very damning, the report, if you read between the lines of what's been said publicly and what was said privately.
No, spot on, mate. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You can only imagine how vicious it was behind the scenes. You said they got nothing out of Robinson. Well, Robinson got nothing out of this team. And it's not like there's a host of guys that we would pick that Robinson didn't pick. I mean, you mentioned Ruben Love. Tava Nawai is a guy I think should be in the mix. Outside of those two guys, you look at the options, the players that are available to the All Blacks coach. It's not fantastic. And that got me thinking about that Highlanders team that won Super Rugby under Jamie Joseph. And if memory serves me, that team was also very no-name brand. Like, as a guy who was involved in and around rugby, the Highlanders team, a lot of those oaks we never heard of. I mean, Joe Wheeler was a guy none of us had ever heard of. He came to that press conference when the Highlanders were in Cape Town. Nobody asked him any questions. We didn't know who he was. So
he became a Sky presenter.
He became a Sky presenter.
So he could ask the questions.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is Jamie Joseph has a track record. Obviously, he understands the pathways in New Zealand. He understands the depth of talent there. He's a guy who could maybe do a job taking players that are not A-listers at the moment, despite the fact Super Rugby is ailing a bit, and put them together into a very competitive team. You know, it's kind of those two things are aligning. I think the late Shane Christie was a key player for that Highlanders team.
They had Aaron Smith and Ben Smith, but
Obviously.
outside of that,
It was no names.
There wasn't a hell of a lot going on there in terms of internationals. And they won away from home as well in that final, I think, against the Hurricanes. And he's done well with the Maori All Blacks when he coached them. He's just so respected and revered over there. And I think he also speaks to that Polynesian component, which potentially Scott Robinson didn't speak to. The story that Dalton Papalili refused to take a call-up for the Welsh test. Now, to get guys saying they don't want to play for the All Blacks, those guys talk about the jersey, the aura of the jersey.
But that's what it comes back to for me. Like
something wasn't right in that mix from the beginning.
But we say that they acted quickly, but I mean, Leo McDonald walked away. Holland walked away. You've got players refusing to come to training camps. The sort of lieutenants of Robertson's Crusaders tenure, Richie Mo'unga is not around. He's not available to the All Black. Like, all of those are flags. So as much as this is the first bloke they've axed midway through his contract, in a way, New Zealand dragged their heels on this because the signs were there.
Well, the signs were there post the first season. So you didn't expect he won 10 from 14 and he could have said, I had to play 2 matches against the Springboks in South Africa. And hey, I beat Ireland. I retained the Bledisloe Cup, kind of ticked some boxes, beat England in a home series at home. It's like, okay, well, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Got the rub of the green in the second season because he played that weakened French team, struggled in that first test, got the next 2 wins. And then I think the one that saved him was our poor start at Eden Park in their first 25 minutes. They scored 14 quick points. Another 5 minutes, we won that test because we came back so strongly. And then they played that very good first 35 minutes in Wellington against us, playing the Scott Robinson way, which wasn't sustainable. and then we blew them away. Now, either they had to chop him then, or they had to find a reason for that end of the year tour.
Yeah.
But at that stage, there was no Jamie Joseph on the scene. He only came in after that. And all of a sudden, the All Blacks 15 had a permanent coach. And then you just read the signs that they are putting a contingency plan in place. And let's see what we can get out of this end of the year tour. It was an indifferent performance in Chicago against Ireland. Scotland, they were hanging on. England, they got pumped. And then Wales was a gimme. It was an awful tour, actually, for them. So statistically, you look at it and you go, 74%, 20 from 27. Any other country would say, wow, happy days. But the excellence David Kirk talks about, and he was the 87 World Cup winning captain, retired after that as a young man, went overseas, got plenty of degrees, very bright individual, a very good leader. And he said, trajectory, excellence, not there. Not what you expect in performance from an All Black team. And that makes me nervous for the Greatest Rivalry Tour, in the sense that change can only be a good thing for them. And we've been talking about that. Some of our players on the cusp of potentially going out. That was a 4-0 gimme for me, up until the news from New Zealand this morning, that with Robinson still there, I just felt there would be no change. Be same old, and Rassie would tell him, you're close, you get in there. But I think it's great for the tour. It's given us something to think about. But kudos to David Kirk and the New Zealand Rugby Union for acting, I think, swiftly, given the circumstances, and chopping Razor and sending him into club rugby in Europe, or to Japan.
Japan, yeah.
And
So, mate, what's your take on this? Does Tony go back? Does he stick around?
I think Tony sticks around, mate.
Oh, nice.
I think he sticks around.
So who gets the job?
I think he finds probably someone from the Highlands that he's worked with.
Oh, you mean Jamie Joseph gets the job?
I think
but Tony
Jamie
doesn't
Joseph
go?
gets the job.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
I'm convinced he gets that
Okay.
job. And that it could also be that he gets Tony Brown post the 27 World Cup. And Tony Brown says, it's where I wanted to coach always. And there has been movements like that before. I'd be disappointed if Tony Brown kind of leaves now and goes to New Zealand. Disappointed in the sense that I think we're on the cusp of something really special. He's done the hard yards with the Springboks.
Yeah.
He started to evolve them. And this season, I was really looking forward to the completion of Tonyball in the context of how South Africa plays.
Yeah.
So I would be really disappointed. I know initially you weren't a big fan of his. You came to love him. You came to cuddle him. You came to massage him. And now you just want to send him on a plane to New Zealand. How come?
I'm not saying that, man. I think he may want to go. That's my point. But yeah, look, it certainly sort of ups the interest levels in this Greatest Rivalry Tour, because there is change afoot, and that creates a level of mystery around what you're going to get from the All Blacks. And I think that's great. That's great for the tour, and it's great for rugby.
Because both of us love a good conspiracy.
Yes.
What would Rassie be thinking? I need to keep this guy. Because let's be honest, Rassie also has had a few conspiracies of his own in time. Okay?
Mate, Rassie's way ahead of this.
You think
He's way ahead of this. I mean, I don't think it's news to Rassie that Razor's been sacked.
No, but you think Rassie would want to fight to keep Tony Brown?
No, I think when he hired Tony, he would have seen that this was a potential development, and he would have had those conversations then already, or he would have made up his mind then already how he's going to deal with it. I don't think Rassie's going to... Rassie's, I think, the last person who's going to try and keep somebody who doesn't want to be there. So I think if Tony comes in and he says, look, I'd love to go spend time with Jamie and work with All Black, I don't think Rassie's going to stand in his way.
Okay, but I'm not talking about the guy doesn't want to be there. I'm talking about in the evolution of the Bok game.
Yes.
So much emphasis has been put on what Tony Brown can be, and he's the best in the world in terms of what he offers.
Yeah.
And I think that's fairly in rugby universally accepted. Wherever he's gone, he's added dimensions to teams that he's worked with and players that he's coached. Ironically, whoever gets the All Blacks next year gets Richie Mo'unga as well. So it just hasn't worked for Razor. And they'll probably open up the overseas ruling as well.
Yeah.
Can bring back 5.
Yeah.
Razor, why couldn't I use him? Look, he'll always have his surfboard, and
his fringe.
Yeah, trust
Mate,
the process, mate.
So
yeah, I think it's the greatest news, the greatest rivalry tour could have got, because it just puts so much renewed interest into the All Blacks.
Exactly.
Where we were, ho-hum, bring them. This is time for us to dominate them. All of a sudden, it's like, hang on a second.
What's coming?
What squad is going to arrive here? How are they going to play? and who they're going to play.
Yep.
I think it's brilliant.
I think it's great, mate.
It's brilliant for World Rugby, and it also shows not good enough, bullet them and get on with it. Test rugby is not about seeing out a cycle and taking defeats you shouldn't because we can't pay a guy out.
Exactly.
Find the money.
Find the money, mate.
Find the money and send him to the beach.
Send it.
Send him to France.
I love it.
All right, so that is the All Black debate. I know South Africans are euphoric that there's change. I would have preferred Razor to stay for just 2 more years from a South African
I've seen
perspective.
those comments.
I think New Zealand are going to be more dangerous because of the change.
For sure.
Because it just didn't work out. And it's interesting. Guys who have had a lot of success at club level, we saw that with Heineke Meyer, we saw that with Robbie Deans, and we've seen it now with Razor. Sometimes 7 years, 5 years winning at a club isn't necessarily the recipe to go and win with an international team. Your thoughts, mate?
It sounded like that was the outro.
What outro? We're talking Investing Champions Cup.
Yes,
it's
we
the
are.
big one. It's playoff rounds. It's basically
Yeah.
a round of 32 for most teams.
Yep.
9 teams who still need to qualify. Only 7 have qualified. All 3 South African teams still in with a shot. The Stormers against the Leicester Tigers. DHL Stadium, 30,000. Be there. Zels has worked the game plan. And this week they'll listen. Kick some more. Up against Leicester Tigers, they get the win, and they hope that Harlequins will lose to La Rochelle away from home, and they'll host a quarter-final. They'll end second on that table. We're assuming Leicester will hammer Bayonne, who haven't won a game. The Sharks at home against Clermont. Clermont have left 20 players at home.
Yep.
They haven't won a game. That one I'm taking. The Sharks to kind of lose the tuna tag, get back the Sharks tag to roll them. I don't see much happening for the Bulls. They picked a nice side. I think they're low on confidence. I'm picking an 8th defeat in succession in all competitions because I do believe Power is very dangerous at home. They got their win against the Scarlets. It keeps them alive in the competition.
Not only that, in Group 4, Power need to win to stay in the playoffs. So
Exactly.
they're going to be motivated, and they're at home.
And it's been 25 years since they played in the Investing Champions Cup, and they will want to go through to the playoff rounds. And then in the EPCR Challenge Cup, the Cheetahs are out, unfortunately. They didn't play last weekend because of inclement weather. The Lions, they kept their hopes alive with a win against Leon. They win, they go through. So statistically speaking, all 4 South African teams still there. Where's your money game, mate?
Mate, I think I concur with you across the board, mate. I'm going to say, obviously, Stormers to beat Leicester. I think the Sharks beat Clermont. I think the Bulls probably lose in France. I'd love to see the Cheetahs beat Racing, mate. And I don't know about the Lions beating Perpignan on the road, mate. That's a tough one.
Okay, well, it's all the rave for the last weekend and this weekend, Investing Champions Cup. Jacques Reynaud, the CEO of the EPCR Investing Champions Cup. We love him. He's a good man. We know he's a big Toulon supporter. We did catch up with him a little bit earlier. He was in Paris on his way to Bath to watch Jan van Kraan's team do the business. They've already qualified for the last 16. And kind of like we spoke to Jacques about, he's a huge fan of South Africa and South African teams in the Investing Champions Cup. And we spoke to him, and I kind of asked him the question of, are we being hard on the South African teams, expecting them to basically be top 2 in every kind of pool stages? And what is the future of South African teams? And we spent a little bit of time with him. And this is what he had to say to Zels and myself. And we even asked some of your questions that you put to us. And that first one we forgot to ask him is, when are the Bulls going to host the final at Loftus when they get there? So we're joined by Jacques Reynaud, CEO EPCR Investing Champions Cup. He is the man, and he's also the man who gets to see the most live games in Investing Champions Cup and in the Challenge Cup. He's the most envied rugby supporter in the north and in the south. Jacques, a lot of optimism pre the tournament with South Africa. We had a bad round last weekend, and typical of South Africans, we shouldn't play in the tournament anymore. A week ago, we were going to win it. This week, we shouldn't be there. Is the South African public, and by extension, potentially the media, a little bit too harsh on the South African teams when you think all 3 in the Investing Champions Cup can still make the playoffs, and the Lions can still make the playoffs of the EPCR Challenge?
Hello, and delighted to be invited again to your show. I'm delighted to see the passion of the South African fans. It is true that this year's competition is delivering incredibly competitive pool stages. And it is true that we are going into a round 4 high-stake, high-drama weekend. It's all to play for. All 4 South African franchises can still qualify. 1 or 2 with home advantage, which is so important in this competition. So I'm not sure whether it's fair or too harsh. I'm just reading this as passion and excitement around this drama weekend. It's a thriller weekend. The story is not written in advance. All I can tell you, it's going to be a cracker weekend, not only for South African fans, for all fans.
When you look at the addition of South African at the moment, that is the talking point. Are you guys still convinced that South Africa is a great addition to the competition? We saw the Stormers had early success. The Sharks, it's predicted they will have success. They did knock over Saracens at home. And I go back to my earlier question that maybe there is just a little bit of patience that is required from a South African perspective. We've been spoiled with success with the Springboks. The Sharks won the Challenge Cup. And it will come, that the squads will be built strong enough to be competitive and to make it through to those big dance rounds, the latter stages of May.
Well, it's a good question. It's true that in the North, some teams, some clubs have a 30-year history in preparing and playing in the toughest club rugby competition of the world. So there is a learning curve, I'm sure. But South African rugby is proud. South African franchises are ambitious. They placed 2 clubs in the top 8 in the first season. They won one trophy, the Challenge Cup, in the second season. Forget about last season, and concentrate on this season, where you can definitely see that there is ambition and also how should I put it, a preparation. And a played rugby that makes me think they can go deep in the competition this time. Let's speak after round 4.
Yeah, and I mean the drama's right there. If you look at the fact that the Sharks lost the Sharks Bowl against Sale, and now face Clermont, and potentially if they beat Clermont and Toulouse slip up in Sale, the Sharks are sort of in the mix, and Toulouse miss out in the playoffs. It's just an incredible 1 week to the next. It really is dramatic.
It definitely is a high-stake weekend. We call it an all-to-play-for weekend. And this is the beauty of the tournament. You have to play for home advantage. You have to play for qualification. You have to play to stay in the EPCL Challenge Cup. Otherwise, you're eliminated. So it's a high-drama weekend. We still have 7 former champions who need to secure their qualifying spot. So there is high drama. It is the beauty of this Investec Champions Cup and EPCL Challenge Cup competitions. There is 8 weekends, 24 match days, but on those 8 weekends, you really have to deliver the very best, and you have to win, ideally with bonus points.
Jacques, when you talk about the competition, we've always known come playoff stage, and especially the semi-finals and the finals weekends, I mean, it's like the Club Rugby World Cup. I mean, it's strength v strength. It's great matches, capacity crowds wherever they go. In the past, like you said, last season, some of the league stages, there were weighted games. Some weakened teams went away from home and took a beating. But if you look at this season's competition and you look at the winning, the Glasgow's win against Toulouse, you look at how Saracens fought against Toulouse, La Rochelle a kick away from beating Leinster in Dublin. We talk about great European days and great European nights. Even early on in the season, the Stormers going to Bayonne and winning getting their campaign started. So when you talk about the growth and for the education of our South African fans, it's to get that sense of great European Saturdays, Sundays, and great European nights. And for someone who's also followed the tournament closely for the last 30 years, I just felt that this is a year that you're going to talk about those nights as much as we'll talk about whoever wins this thing. Because you can't take that Glasgow night away. You can't take that Saracens night away.
Mark, you're absolutely right. This year is extremely competitive, probably the most competitive pool stages in recent years. Some of the games that you mentioned might go into the history books, the Glasgow-Toulouse or the Saracens-Toulouse games in particular. I was at the Bayonne game. Bayonne had not lost a home game for 20 games, and the Stormers did it. So it's extremely competitive this year. This is what people love. This is why some people are starting now to travel to South Africa to follow the teams. I mean, the Bordeaux fans were there for the first time, and the Bristol fans are following their teams now. So there is a momentum of the competition. Remember, for the first 3 rounds, 700,000 fans made it to the stadia. We will have an increase in ratings between 20 and 30% depending on the market. So there is high drama. It feels indeed like this is a special year, and we can see it in the data that is coming back to us, and in the excitement going into round 4, which everybody talks about as being a cracker weekend.
Why, if a South African team does place in a position they could host a semi-final, why at the moment can't they? And do you envisage that changing in the next couple of years, that the motivation is there for a South African team to be able to host a semi-final?
Look, you're absolutely right. The pool stages are super important. They're fantastic. There's jeopardy in each and every round of the Investec Champions Cup to secure home advantage, to win possibly with bonus points. That is the story of the pool stages. It is jeopardy at every match, intensity, high attacking rugby to maximize the points and try to secure home advantage. When we go to the knockout stages, it's a different story. It's an in and out game, so there is a different intensity. It's a cup format, so it's in and out at each and every round. And then, when you go to semi-finals and finals, which are absolute mega events, last year we hosted 115,000 fans in Cardiff. This year we're going to Bilbao. It'll be another 100,000 plus. It's the greatest weekend of club rugby. It's going to EPCL Challenge Cup final Friday night, the Investec Champions Cup final on Saturday. This year's destination has a special flair, Bilbao. We rotate the destinations for the finals. We were, last 4 years we did Dublin, we did London, we did Cardiff. This year is Bilbao. Fans love it. 75% of our tickets are already sold. Not knowing who's going to be in the final, to tell you how important this is in the club rugby fans' agenda, and how exciting this is. So the pool stages are fantastic. The knockout stages are going to be box office.
All right, Jacques, we're going to catch up with you on Monday when those positions have been completed, and we know Toulon will be there. I know that you always keep one eye on Toulon. What would your message be to this diehard, passionate South African supporter in terms of the Investec Champions Cup, in terms of the EPCR Challenge Cup? What would you be saying to them in terms of next season, especially more so even than this season?
Whenever I meet South African fans, at the gate or entering the stadium, I try to deliver 3 things. The first thing is, you should be proud of the contribution of South Africa to the 30 years of history of the Investec Champions Cup. Whether it's coaches or players, they have made a history, and many of them have contributed to their clubs, securing their first star on the jersey. The second element, I think, is, do believe in the ambition of your club. South African rugby is proud. The franchises are proud and are ambitious. There is a learning curve, but they're ambitious, and I'm sure they'll go deep and ever deeper in the competition. And the third element is, I always keep saying, is just enjoy the EPCR weekends, whether it's the EPCR Challenge Cup or the Investec Champions Cups. It's 21 matches per weekend of test match rugby with club colours. Enjoy this.
Always great chatting to Jacques Reynaud. How do you say it?
Jacques Reynaud.
Au revoir, Jacques. We'll see you soon, monsieur. You know what I loved about Jacques?
Everything, mate.
is
Top man.
he's Switzerland, a bit like you are when it comes to the Stormers.
He's neutral.
No, Switzerland.
Oh,
Huh?
yes.
Hey, Zels, what's happening at training today? Sorry, mate, my head's been down. I can't tell you. Zels, I believe Marcus Miller's there. Really?
Marcus Miller. Not Marcus Smith.
Exactly.
You said Marcus Smith.
I said, and you said exactly. Did you not see the play on words?
No, I didn't. Did you
Because you never tell me anything. Hey, what's going on with the Stormers? I don't know, mate. I'm crunching data. Hey? So, Zels, you know the team's been announced. Really?
Who's in it?
Marcus Smith.
Who's they playing?
Marcus Smith. Leicester Tigers, mate. What can we expect from them?
Mate, tigers are very dangerous animals. Very, very dangerous, mate. You can't see them, especially at night. No, Tigers are going to be a proper challenge, mate. Huge kicking game, serious team. I think tactically very good, but probably not as good as the Stormers, mate. I think it's going to be a cracking game, and obviously I believe the home team's going to win this one.
Well, they are expecting 30,000 at the DHL Stadium. I'll be there. I'm doing a lot of work. I'll be in that press box, hopefully writing about a good quality Stormers win, having watched a good quality Sharks win before that. I hope there's more rugby intelligence applied by the Stormers this week, that there's more balance to their game, that there's a very good kick-chase game, and that they respect the occasion and go out and get the win and then think about the bonus point after that, because the primary thing is to win the game, because even if they do win it with a bonus point and Harlequins win in La Rochelle, which is not an impossibility, given that La Rochelle are pretty much out of it, then it would mean nothing. We'd go through as third place, but that means an away last 8. You want top 2 to be hosting a quarterfinal, and to host a quarterfinal commercially would be massive for the Stormers, as it would be for any South African team. But the team that's in a strong position still to host a playoff game would be the Stormers. So as a biased Stormers fan, I got it wrong last week. I backed them. I shouldn't have. But when I look at the quality of the side that's put out this week, it is the real Stormers. It's the A team. I look at the quality of the Sharks team that's put out. It's the Sharks team, and that they should be successful. And then I look elsewhere in Europe. Bath, Johan van Kraan, he's done wonders there. Really put himself in the reckoning to kind of also post Rassie one day, to be up there. Toulouse, I think they will bounce back. You never write them off. Leinster are troubling me, Zels, because they get in their wins and they get in that home ground.
They're building, mate.
That home ground advantage. And let's not forget about Franco Smith, another South African coach doing wonders with Glasgow, but he's also lost one of his very good players. Hugh Jones played for the Stormers, plays for Scotland. He's off to Toulon, mate. Don't write those guys off either.
No, Toulon, a great side. Obviously, great pedigree in Europe and in France. Some real heavyweights that are not at the top of the pools and the pool groups, or whatever you call them. Like we say, La Rochelle are currently languishing in 4th place in Group 3. They have to beat Harlequins, who just put 60-plus points on the Stormers at home. So yeah, it really comes down to the wire here. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And Toulon are quietly sneaking, I think, up the table. I think Toulon could potentially book themselves a home playoff in the quarterfinals and round of 16. So keen to see how it plays out.
Well, and as Jacques said, this has been the most competitive. Well, since the South African teams have entered the Investing Champions Cup, this is the 4th season. The competition is 31 seasons old. This has been the most competitive, and you don't even see it as the last round in terms of 40 rounds. You see it as the last 32.
You're playing for your life.
You basically are playing to get in, or you're playing to host. So
if the Sharks win, and I said this when we had the conversation with Jacques Renel, they could potentially eliminate Toulouse from this. I don't think Toulouse are going to lose at Sale, but I mean, it's just crazy, just how things can flip in a week. It's amazing.
Yeah, don't worry, Anton Dupont will be there, and they're not playing at Sale, mate. They're playing at home.
Yes, that is true.
They're playing at home, and they don't lose at home. Toulouse will be there, but the problem with that is Toulouse won't be hosting
they'll be on the road.
They'll be on the road, and pity any team that has to play them in the playoffs. It's going to be a cracking weekend. Don't forget about the Lions. Don't forget about the Lions. And also the Cheetahs, they'll get a game. And that's all that counts. Francis Steyn is back in Paris at Rassie 92. He played so many games, kicked so many drop goals. He looks a little bit different now, but the passion is there. Support the Cheetahs. You heard why they have to be based in Europe.
Yes.
It's all about finance. It's all about commercial. And for the Stormers, getting a home playoff, it's all about the cash, baby.